What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 282 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And on today's episode, we have Sam Bauman. He is the founder and president of Earthscape. And I had the opportunity to go tour his shop with an event with Knowledge Tree Consulting a couple of months ago now, and it was an impressive place, and the systems and teams that he has in place. We got to have multiple different stations that we got to visit and see everything from the project management to the administration to the entire setup of the yard. It was a really impressive space, and Sam actually spoke during that event, and I came away with a lot of questions to ask him, so it just made sense that I reached out to him and asked to have him on the show to be able to answer those questions, as well as to bring a little bit of what he talked about there onto the podcast here to live. And I do want to say thank you to Sam, because he did bear with me with my audio and connection to the internet as we were actually driving back from H&A during this episode recording. So thank you to Sam for bearing with me through that. And before we get into today's episode, I want to say thank you to our sponsors, Cycle CPA. And if you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. Knowledge Tree Consulting, if you are looking for somebody to help you in your business, I would highly recommend Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in our industry, and you've heard them on the podcast multiple times before. George and Peter of Oriole Landscaping, and George a couple of other times talking about various topics, and we'll definitely have George on in the future to talk more. But you can learn more about them at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And hey, if you are looking for a software to dive into this off-season, the How to Hardscape headquarters can help you budget, estimate job cost, time track, schedule, and so much more, including our installation courses if you're looking to get into hardscape, or use those installation courses to be able to train up your employees, as well as a community that we are going to be doing monthly meetings online to especially get into next year, and to be able to share resources and to share one another's knowledge of how we can help each other and grow together. And in addition to that, I'm looking to launch also a book club within the membership as well, quarterly going through a book and hopefully getting on the author of that book for us to be able to ask questions directly. You may have heard some of the authors on the podcast before. These are the types of authors and books that we want to be diving into together as a community. So if any of this interests you, shoot me a message at How to Hardscape on Instagram, or email me contact@howtohardscape.com. Without further ado, let's get into our interview with Sam. Today, we're joined by Sam Bauman from Earthscape, founder and president here. I actually got to go see Sam and the Knowledge Tree Consulting guys at an event recently. Sam gave what I would say is a very truthful, honest, and kind of wrap up of last year, which would have been 2023, into this year, 2024. And I am really excited to have him on the show, because I've got lots of questions from him based on his speech there. But Sam, thank you so much for giving your time today here.
Thanks, Michael. I'm super excited to be here. Any opportunity I get to talk about landscaping and Earthscape, I'm all over it.
Awesome. Sam, let's get started. Let's give our audience a little bit of context about you, yourself, how you got started in the industry. Start about your story wherever you want, end wherever you want, but I'm sure I'm going to have some follow-ups here. So how did you get started in the industry?
Yeah, I'm Sam. I'm the president of Earthscape. I am one of the founders here. Earthscape got started next year will be in 20 years of business, and started the company with an older and much wiser person who's mostly retired now. And so we had a partnership from day one. We are actually now an ESOP company, so we're employee owned, and there's about 16 of us that all have shares in the company. That happened about 4 years ago, so that's a big part of we see employee ownership as a big part of our future, but it is fairly new to us in kind of the life cycle of Earthscape. I'm going on getting close to 40 years old. I'm 38, but my whole career has been in landscaping. I'm one of those weird kids that knew what I wanted to do when I was 12, 13 years old, and so I was doing the grass cutting route through parts of public school and high school, and bought a lawn tractor, and co-opted for a landscape company in high school actually. So did that, and then met my business partner Mark, and and then I actually took the horticulture apprenticeship program, which is like a Red Seal program here in Canada, and did that. And kind of the rest is history. We started with one crew our first year of business, and fast forward to today, we've had some ups and downs through the years, but like this year, just to give you a sample size, this year we'll be at about 9.5 million revenue. About 90% of that is construction, landscape, residential construction, design, build, and our average size project is around 125,000. So some big stuff, not a lot of smaller stuff, and then the 10% of our revenue is mostly to cater to those construction projects that we've installed, but high end residential maintenance. We don't do snow removal. We actually use that as a recruiting tool to get people to come work for Earthscape and not have to do snow removal through the winter months. But yeah, that's almost that's a side story. But hopefully that gives you enough rough context of where we're at. We're at around 45 employees this year, and yeah, design. We do all of our design in-house, so design, build, maintain for residential clients.
I'm just taking notes as you talk here, and you've kind of touched on a whole bunch of different things that I took notes on during this speech that I want to touch on. Everything from ESOP to maintenance to also your horticultural program that you did there. Looking back at it, was the horticultural program that you went through school for, was that worth it? What were you able to pull from it to help you with Earthscape?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny. I was just talking to someone about that the other day, and actually it was at our monthly team meeting, and I was encouraging the same program I took to our team members. But there's a caveat. So for me, it was very much worth it because I actually took that program, and my experience up until that point was lawn maintenance. So I was the kid that was on a lawn maintenance crew at a previous company before we started Earthscape, and my foreman wouldn't let me drive the lawn tractor. So I I ran the string trimmer for 1 year, and that's pretty much all I got to do. And so in my career path there, I had very little experience, especially in the construction side of things. So when I got into the apprenticeship program, the schooling was amazing, and I had so much to learn. And so at my career journey, it made a lot of sense. If I had 10 years or even 5 years of landscape experience at a really good company that was open to teaching and things like that, I'm not sure it would have made as much sense there. So I hope that kind of makes sense for me in my career path, and for people who've only been in the landscaping for a couple of years or a few years and haven't been able to do, the maintenance side of things and the construction side of things and get a broad range there, then absolutely I think it makes sense.
Gotcha. And then do you actively recruit from people that have gone through your program? Do you look for those types of people?
We try, and the employees that we send to go through that program, we encourage them to talk to their classmates about it, and we actually have like a referral bonus program here. But that hasn't really worked very well because people who take an apprenticeship program are already connected with a company, so their company is sending them there, and so that, yeah, we still want to encourage that if there may be some opportunities there, but the reality is historically it hasn't worked well because they're already connected with a company in the apprenticeship program specifically.
Gotcha. So then what has worked well for Earthscape in terms of recruiting? Everything from the those just starting in the field all the way to the foreman, all the way to the office staff and that.
We have a mantra here that's always be hiring. We're never that necessarily that great at it, but yeah, we do have open positions and job postings up on Indeed for everywhere, everything from crew leaders to lead hands to landscape associates and even designers. Even though we're not necessarily hiring for those positions, we want to keep the postings up. And if there are great team members that are future team members that are on, to have a conversation with them and see if we can find a spot for them at our escape here.
Okay, let's get into what does your day-to-day look like at this point in time in the business? What does a president and at your point in time do day to day here?
every day is a little bit different, but I have about 10 to 15 hours a week of regular recurring meetings. And so those would be with my direct reports, so operations managers and someone from like our CFO and things like that. So that 15 hours is kind of baked. I also still wear the sales manager hat, and so sales is still a big part of my role. As we continue to grow, I'd like to get step out of that, but sales, making sure we're hitting our sales targets weekly and monthly, are a big part of that. And how to get there is managing the sales teams and talking with the sales teams on what their issues are and things like that. So that's I'd say 15 hours of my week is baked in regular meetings. Other than that, there's a lot of strategy and looking ahead. And I am part of a peer group. I strongly suggest that. That does take some time for prep work, but just talking with other people in the industry and things like that. So yeah, I hope. I mean, I could talk a lot more about that. But I hope that gives a high enough um, perspective of it. But I could dig into more of that if you wanted.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to touch on that kind of as we continue here. One of the things at the Knowledge Tree Consulting event was that we went to different stages or different stages where we learned more and more about your business. One of them was in the office and going through the different metrics that you guys look at on a weekly basis, monthly basis, and so on and so forth there. When it came to setting up people in those types of roles, how did you go about, did you have the game plan of these are the metrics that you needed to know about in your business to be able to make knowledgeable decisions, or did you hire people to be able to put in those positions to be able to take on, measuring these metrics and these KPIs in your business to be able to do this? Yeah, I'll leave it at that. A little bit more of a general question, but let you kind of take it from there.
It's a little different for every scenario. For some positions, we've hired people and they've actually grown internally within the company, and so they've taken on a role they haven't done before. And so in that situation, we would actually I would talk to my peer group. I talk to other people in the industry, talk to consultants that we work with, and from there we would say, hey, here's based on other companies, these are the KPIs we should be measuring for. So that's, scenario one, which is fairly common within Earthscape because we've been growing so quickly. People are we're trying to develop our staff internally, and they're taking on a position they actually haven't done in the past. So we would actually help them quite closely and work together, but also give them the metrics that they needed. Um, we have hired other people that have a lot of experience as well, and so those roles they would say, hey, based on my previous role, here are the KPIs I would use here, and not even KPIs, but here's how I would suggest managing my position from KPIs down to you know who are the direct reports, how are we managing the staff that are beneath us, things like that. So, I mean, it's a little different for every scenario. It depends on how much we know about that position. So, I'll use maintenance as an example. This year maintenance is going to be 10% of our revenue. Last year it was 6%. The year before that it was 3%. We've been growing that division quite quick, though we actually don't know very much about maintenance. We know a lot more today than we did yesterday or a year ago, but internally we didn't know a lot about maintenance. So we either rely on the people that we're bringing onto our team that have previous experience in maintenance and high-end residential maintenance, or we rely heavily on our peer group and consultants and things like that. So that one there, it's like that's the kind of the polar opposite to our construction division, where we do have a lot of internal experience on that, and we rely less on outside forces, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And then to kind of tie the question of your day-to-day roles and responsibilities into that question that I asked there, how do you know when you can kind of step back a little bit and let people be able to take a little bit more control in your business and let them, handle the metrics a little bit more without having to lean them into certain avenues, and same with the maintenance division and letting people take a little bit more agency in your business as opposed to you being hands on and so on and so forth there.
Where do I start with that? So obviously if the KPIs are looking good and the financials are looking good within a specific division, you know, I don't think I have to be as involved there. So that's one thing. The other one is we do net promoter scores and like NPS, and so if the that's another really important one for us. Of our clients, we need our clients to be happy. So if those scores look good within a certain division, then that's another good sign that we have. I don't have to be as involved. I think those are two big ones. But also, you know what? A lot of things a lot of things come up in conversation. So I'm an email guy. I like to do a lot of communication through email, but it doesn't always tell you the whole story. And so when you talk to someone and you go through their issues, are they bringing issues to the table? Are they bringing solutions? Through conversation, I'm going to get a pretty good feel for whether that division needs my support as much or not. So I hope that gives you a bit of an idea.
Yes, and that's going to lean right into my next question. But I do have a question that you talked about there, Net Promoter Score. What is that?
Yeah, so it's a bit of it's not landscape specific. It's like a service industry metric where yeah, NPS, Net Promoter Score. So there is if you Google it, there's lots of data and research on how to actually get that score. Um, it's a specific question about asking if you would refer our services to someone else, and it's it breaks them into categories, and so in the algorithm basically is they give you a rank of between 1 and 10, and so 9 and 10 are they're promoters, and then there's 7 and 8 are they're like neutral, and then if they give you a score between 1 and 6, algorithm it really tells you we where our score. We've just started measuring this last year, so now um, we can start measuring against ourselves, right? So we can see, hey, are we going up or down compared to last year by department? So we've got maintenance and construction; they have different scores. So we measure against ourselves, but I also have some data in the industry, and so we can compare against other companies in the industry. NPS. I would just yeah, it's definitely worth Googling. And we there was a summer growth summit that was with Jeffrey Scott a couple years ago with Mariani. They're like 10 times their size, and I think they're the biggest residential design build maintenance firm in North America, I think. Don't quote me on that, but they do that very well. And I was inspired when I heard them talking about how they measure that. And really, the other thing too is you're gonna get some critical feedback. I think this maybe is the most important thing. You're gonna get some critical feedback from pissed off customers, and that's the perfect opportunity to reach out to them right away and address it.
Make things right. Okay, and then to go off that, do you have any scoring algorithm sort of survey thing for your internal employees? And how do you go about identifying a career path forward for your employees within the business itself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't have all the answers, and we're always trying to get better every day, every year. But we do have an employee net promoter score, so it's ENPS, and it's actually a very similar question. It's I believe it's would you recommend Earthscape to as a place of employment to one of your friends or family? I'm paraphrasing a bit, but that we use that. We've been doing that for about 2 years now, and that gives us a pretty good idea of where we're going. And and we also have like other like more generic employee surveys that ask them lots of questions about Earthscape and gets into the details a bit more. But the ENPS is one question, and that we measure year over year. We actually do one in the spring and one in the fall. Last year we noticed our scores were quite poor. But turns out if you don't have a lot of work, then people aren't super happy. So you can be the best place of employment, but if things are tough, if the financials don't look good, there's a lot of us are owners, but also we have a pretty good profit sharing plan that's for everyone. But if people aren't getting profit sharing, or it's going to be a very small amount, that you're probably not going to be super happy about your work, right? So I mean, last year took a dip, this year it's back up. But that's one thing. Your other question about career paths, we are very new to this. We've had a landscape construction career path that we like to talk about with our employees during our 10-minute check-ins, which happen about every 3 months, but also annually during the performance review, which is more of a detailed meeting. But we only have it in a construction division. We are currently in the process of having it in our maintenance division because that's the division that's going to grow, and also like with our designers and things like that. But yeah, career path is, we're actually looking right now for a trainer to join our team, and we think we're lacking in that whole area. Um, Training, career development, and internal growth. I think that's a huge opportunity for us. And there's some big companies that do it very well.
At what point in your business did you start to think we might need a trainer? Like that might be useful because that just increases your overhead so much more in your business. So it's got to be something that needs to be valuable within your business. At what point was there a certain like thing that happened or catalyst that you're thinking, you know what, if we want to continue to grow, we're going to need to hire on somebody to do that.
Honestly, this posting and thinking we need someone is that's been a like only happening the last couple months, specifically of like, hey, we think we need someone full time doing this. But we've recognized we have a training an opportunity to put more effort into training, and that's been about 2 years old. And so it's kind of evolved over the last couple of years. About 2 years ago, we said, wow, we need to have more of a formal training construct within Earthscape. And so we last year we put an effort into, like, our operations manager put an effort into identifying what key areas we need to get better at it within a company. And we did that, and it's better than where we were previously. So we've done more training, but it's still not even close to where we need to be. And in order to do training properly, it takes a ton of time. And so, we see that as something where we're going to have to need someone full time to really spearhead that whole thing. I mean, are we going to find that person? I'm not sure. We're going to put effort into it, but it's really trying to find someone who's a bit of a unicorn, who understands the landscape industry, is good at training, is good at having conversations with employees on where they want to go, where they can improve. So it's almost like an HR trainer hybrid that also knows landscaping. So it's going to be, we can talk in a year, and I'll say maybe we haven't found the position yet, but if we don't, then we have to take on some of those things internally with our existing management team.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Cycle CPA. It's crucial to review your financial statements on a monthly basis so you can diagnose areas for improving your business's financial health early before they become significant issues. Too many contractors wait until the end of the year to review their financials as they file taxes, when it's often too late to take action to change the outcome. Cycle CPA not only handles bookkeeping and taxes, but they also ensure that you're armed with financial data on a monthly basis to make key business decisions. They offer benchmarking, cash flow forecasting, and assistance in developing targets for financial metrics. With their team of accountants specialized in the hardscape and landscape industry, they currently work with hundreds of companies in this field. Visit cyclecpa.com, and for $200 off, mention the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode.
And coming back to career path and promotion and so on and so forth. When you are hiring somebody, do you explain to them where they can move within Earthscape to kind of promote people coming to you and wanting to work with you? Or is this something that after somebody's kind of worked with you for a bit, you can start to sit them down and say, hey, we see potential in you and we see you kind of going to from here to here within X amount of years or so?
We really try to paint the picture early on, even in the interview process. Where do you want to be in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 5 years? And for some people, it's, I'm going through college and I just want to work hard in the summer. And in 4 years, I'm done, and I'm going to become a doctor or something. And that's totally fine, right? So But for some people, it's like, I want a career, I want to be in landscaping, but they don't know what that looks like. If we don't tell them what that looks like, where they could end up in 3 to 5 years, they might lose interest because being we'll call it a landscape associate. It's a labor, but we try not to use that term around here. A landscape associate is a tough job. You're probably not going to do that for the next 15 years of your life. It's difficult, right? It's hard on your body, and even with the pay, it's hard if someone wants to buy a house or, you know, whatever people want to do with their money, that's going to be tough for them to do that. So we really want to paint the picture early on, but have it as an open conversation. Some people want to be, only want to get up to be a lead hand, and that's totally fine. But we don't want to make any assumptions, and we want to hopefully paint the picture of where they could be in 5+ years. And a lot of that has another part of that is, talking about profit sharing early on, talking about employee ownership. If you want to stick around, this could be something really good for you and a really good retirement nest egg for you. So it's jumping all around there, but yeah, that's about all I got.
Yeah, and I'm going to be jumping around with these questions because there's things that I still want to touch on, but you mentioned employee ownership program. I would definitely want to touch on that. But coming back to your last year, I think it was, in your discussion, you talked about how things were, you definitely saw the sales coming down. And at that point, I think you mentioned that you really had to step back into the business. And, your day-to-day today looks very different than it did a year ago because you really had to step in. And I think you had to put on the sales hat again and really go full force in that. What was that year like for you, and how did that change Earthscape um, compared to what was that 2022 compared to 2023, and then where you see Earthscape going in 2024? How did 2023 kind of affect Earthscape in general?
For sure. So yeah, 2022, we had our best year ever. We did around 11 million revenues, like 15% net profit. Things were great. And we started seeing a slowdown late in the year, but we were we were we were kicking butt. So we said we're gonna keep growing, even though the leads were slowing down. We saw some signs. Like I said, we're gonna keep growing, and so we planned for that. So we added more overhead positions, but the leads weren't coming, and leads dropped off 40%. 2023 was a really bad financially. It was a bad year. We basically ended up between 1 and 2% net profit. Um, However, I'm very, very thankful for that experience. I wouldn't trade that for the world. Maybe I would trade it for world, but it was a really good experience for me. It was a good experience for our team, and really it forced us to make a lot of tough decisions and get back to being lean and mean. Um, all of that to say, like this year we're having a good year. We'll be around probably 14 to 15% profit, but we wouldn't have got there if we wouldn't have made the tough decisions of last year. And yeah, it we had to the reality is some of the advice I got was, hey, if you're gonna you have to make money. So we're in order to be a sustainable business, you have to be profitable. And we we weren't you can't look ahead to 2 to 3 years from now and say, well, once things wash out, we'll be able to correct and be profitable then. No, we have to be profitable now. So that forced us to make some tough decisions with letting some of our people go in 2023 and really dial it back. In hindsight, I should have made a lot of those tough decisions sooner, but that's okay. That was a learning experience for me. And by the way, it's really big for me when I make mistakes that everyone else knows about it, so that they don't make the same mistake. And I really try to encourage that here at Earthscape. I think it gets harder as we grow, and we all have me as the I need to constantly if I make when I make I shouldn't say if I make mistakes when I make mistakes, and I make a lot of them, that I can be open about that with the team and hopefully encourage them to do the same thing. So yeah, any more questions on on that?
I do. I have lots of questions on that. Because I do talk to a lot of contractors North America wide, and it seems that they're feeling that same slowdown this year. And I get messages like, what do I do in these situations? Not just, I would assume the employees that you were laying off were more overhead positions, not so much the labor producing positions, or if you were really slow on work, it was the labor producing positions that need to go as well. And guys are kind of making starting to think about those decisions, maybe making those decisions this year, as well as really needing to get leads. And that's one of the most difficult things as well. Paid ads will go up in price during that time when things are a little bit more slow and there's more people wanting to advertise and so on and so forth there. So, with all that being said, and anything that I touched on there, anything that you want to comment on, as well as what did you do to get the ball rolling with leads to come into Earthscape during that time and even into this year, and why if if 2024 has been similar to 2023 with work, how has Earthscape remained even more profitable than they were in 2023?
Yeah, this is fun. I like this topic. So just digging into last year, like we have to be profitable. So in order for us to be profitable, we were missing our revenue targets by 30%. So that's what the financials were showing, and we didn't think we were going to correct that right away. So if your revenue's down 30%, you got to cut 30% of your costs. That's the tough thing to do. And I'm so glad we made that decision. And because if we would have kept everyone, this year would be probably pulling a smaller profit as well, because we actually had to, yeah, let go some overhead, let go of our C and D players on the production side of things too, because we had too much staff. So yeah, if your revenue is down, expenses have to drop with that. And it is very hard to cut costs when revenue is dropping. So, our first meeting with the executive team was looking at our looking at our org chart and saying, okay, what are we going to do? Who are we going to let go? And these are very tough conversations, but they're very important. And our first kick at it was we had one name. We had one name, but really we had to let go a lot more than that. And so it was like, okay, one, that's not enough. So let's like keep going at it. So we had to keep coming back to the conversation. None of us want to let people go. And but eventually we had to like keep coming back to that same thing. So we came up with a list, made that decision. It was actually a termination. So in Canada anyways, like if you lay someone off, a layoff is the intention they're going to come back at some point. But we knew realistically there wasn't any coming back, at least not in the next couple of years. So termination, then they get their severance, and that's just the right way of doing it. So that was yeah, that was the big thing. So another big piece of advice I would have that we were learning is we were starting to cut people's hours across the board. So it's like on the production side, so hey, our backlog's shrinking. No, cut out overtime. So no overtime. That was okay, except the big issue is you're actually, especially if you have C or D players, you're you're now keeping your C and D players busy and you're sacrificing your A players their hours. So my advice there and our takeaway was if you got C or D players, get rid of them. Get rid of them because and then make sure your A and B players are happy and you're giving them lots of hours. Now it's still not endless overtime and things like that, but don't sacrifice your weak links for your A players. And so that was another big thing for me. And I would encourage people to maybe look at that. Hey, if you've got all A players, wow, good on you. That's incredible. You've got a problem that we don't have. And that's a good problem to have, but yeah. And I can get into leads as well, but maybe you want to have a follow-up question on that.
Yeah, let's touch on employees a little bit there. When you sat down and needed to make that difficult decision of, hey, we need more names that need to be, let go. Um, did you have documentation already in place of, quarterly reviews and so on and so forth, where you were able to use that data to be like, okay, yeah, it's a difficult decision, but this person, this person, or was it just kind of leaning on the A players or your managers in positions to be able to, point those people out and to be able to go that way? And has anything changed in that process of quarterly meetings, reviews, or by yearly, whatever it might be, to be able to document that better and to be able to identify those employees?
Yeah, so most of it was when you look at the org chart, there's, different departments. And even in the overhead, like the overhead staff, there's different departments. So really we couldn't take too many people from one department. So really you look at each department and you say, okay, there's there's three people in this department, we have to get rid of one, right? Or can we, if all three are killer employees and they're all A players, then can one of them be repurposed to another department? Will they want to do that? Um, so it was more like looking at the org chart from that perspective, each looking at each division, if it's dropping 30%, including overhead positions, who do we let go of, and how is who's going to take on the responsibilities? So that was a big part of it. Yeah, I mean, for sure, people when you're looking at three individuals and you have to let go of one, you're definitely looking at their performance. And we're not a large company in a way that we don't know who's who, so we don't have to pull up their last performance review and see how that aligns with these three individuals. We know we're everyone here is on a first name basis, and
Got that. And then getting into the marketing side of things, when you're looking at it, you're down 30% from last year. Where do you start to get more leads into the business and qualified leads and that? Because the first thing you start to think about, at least my brain, is, oh, we need to spend on marketing. But if we're going to spend on marketing, we need to make sure that that's going to be making us money for every dollar spent, because we're already down 30% from last year. Or were there any sort of marketing tactics that you used that were zero costs and you were able to leverage those at any point? What did marketing look like then, and how has that developed and changed into 2024 for Earthscape?
for sure. I mean, I could have a whole separate podcast with you about marketing and sales, because that's a big part of my current role here, and it has been historically. For Earthscape, it's always been getting the that's always been our biggest challenge, is getting the qualified leads in the door. And so for us, qualified leads are someone who we ask people what their budget is up front, and if they've got a budget of $30,000 or more, that's a qualified lead. If they've got a budget of less than 30,000, we historically don't win those jobs. We're a premium contractor. It comes with a premium price, so we just historically don't win those jobs. So we look at qualified leads, but that's our key metric. And yeah, that was dropping off. So how to get more leads? I think that's the question that everyone is asking right now. Um, there's a bunch of things we did, but one thing we did was we actually hired a sales consultant, and we felt like we were losing some qualified leads through our sales process. And a big part of that is talking about financials up front. So I'm getting into more sales, not marketing. How can we get more leads? But I will say, like, we worked with a sales consultant for about a little over a year, and he worked with all of our individual sales people, including myself. And one of the big changes we made was giving more detailed upfront cost to the prospect. And so before they sign up with design, we're both in agreement. Yes, I want X, Y, Z. Yes, the budget is between 250 and $300,000. Okay, let's move to design. So that's a bit of a sidebar. But working with a sales consultant was not cheap, and consultants never are cheap. But it was money well spent. And getting more leads. I mean, this is something I think about. It never ends. So I mean, just in the last week, we increased our Google Ads spend by $3,000 a month, and I think we're around 20,000 a month now for Google Ads spend. But that's the quickest way to turn on the tap, and but the most expensive. So by far our most expensive way of generating leads is through Google Ads, and but it does work, and it does generate a lot of crap too, right? So there's no silver bullet, but that's Google Ads is the quickest and most expensive way to turn on leads.
Definitely.
We put a lot of effort into ask, yeah. Um, And I think my number was off there. That 20,000 number was wrong. I was just thinking we'll be around a little shy of 1% of our revenue this
Okay.
year in Google Ads. So it's probably more like 10,000, around 10,000 a month. But yeah, the 1% number is fairly close, and we'll probably be actually spending a bit more than that next year. But the more of us that spend on Google Ads, the higher the cost. So
Yeah,
we'll all be driving up each other's costs. But that works. It's expensive, and we also work with another consultant that helps us make sure we're spending the money wisely, I guess. And because you can have generic search terms in Google Ads and just generate a bunch of for us unqualified leads. But so that yeah, that's a big. We use specialized people for that because it's a big cost, and it's Google will happily take your money. So that's probably number one. Number two, um, I've as the sales manager, I put a pretty good amount of time into business development. So reaching out to our existing building partners, custom builders, interior designers, things like that. So existing relationships, but also finding new relationships. That is an absolute grind. Um, we've hit some home runs, but I'd say one in every 50 conversations turns into something. So it's a grind, but every once in a while you do hit a home run. There's a custom home builder we met with a year and a half ago, and they've given us 1.5 million in work. So that's the home run. But in order to get the home run, you have to have lots of conversations that don't go anywhere. And so business development is tough. I knew that I felt like I was the right person for it because I can kind of talk the talk with builders and designers and really see what their challenges are and see where their issues are and see if we could solve it and work together with them as a partnership. Um, yeah, business development, that's a big one. And the third one I'd say is asking for referrals. That our sales consultant was big on that. Asking referrals is also a bit of a grind. Um, but we're asking for referrals from our existing client base, and our existing client base actually like us for the most part. So we try to leave clients with a good taste in their um, give them a really good experience. And if you do that, if listeners have ever had if your listeners have ever had service work done at their house and they were happy with the contractor, I think they would all agree that they'd be very, yeah, I'd be very happy to refer you. So, but sometimes if you don't ask for it, you won't get it. And so some of our clients actually didn't even know that we wanted work. Oh, I thought you were busy. No, no, we're busy, but we're always happy to talk to if you've got friends or family that are looking for landscaping or similar experience with you. We'd love to chat with them. And so yeah, some of our clients didn't actually know that was a thing that we wanted work. So asking for referrals is uncomfortable, but that's really important for our entire design and sales team to do that to our existing client base. Those are the three big ones, and I could look into a bit more, but yeah, give clients good experience. That's kind of self-explanatory, and they will refer you if you ask for it. Those are the three big ones.
Gotcha. Facebook, Instagram ads, do you guys dabble in that a bit? Have you seen just Google being much more valuable for you?
We've tried Facebook a little bit, hasn't turned into much, but we haven't really given it a fair shot either. Um, yeah, we've tried some smaller campaigns and it hasn't resulted, so we just get back to Google Ads. Instagram, I mean, we try to do a couple posts a week, but in terms of paid advertising, Instagram, we've tried that a bit as well, but the results we gone down that path. But I'd love to be proven wrong.
Yeah.
We want to take a break from today's episode to thank our sponsor, Knowledge Tree Consulting. They are efficiency consultants in the industry with 35 plus years of industry experience building Oriole landscaping in Toronto, which they are completely hands off at this point. George and Peter have been on the podcast before, and George, on multiple occasions now, I've personally leaned on him to help with the How to Hardscape headquarters software and how we can maximize the efficiency of user experience. And I know the guys at DTE Landscaping, Chuck and Jeffrey, who we've also had on the show multiple times, have hired them on in the past. Check out their consulting services, peer groups, and events that are coming up on their website, knowledgetreeconsulting.com, or check them out on Instagram at joinktc. Now back to our episode.
But going into your sales process a bit, and I do have man, I've got so many questions for you that we'll run out of time before we run out of topics here. But in terms of your sales process, one thing that I've kind of struggled with this year, at least in my own business, is having people drop off in terms of their budget. And a lot of people, we're not dealing with like the I would say 75,000 and below client is where we're at. And a lot of people at that budget range just don't know how much this work costs. So I was leading them down at this is how much it typically costs for their project, and a lot of people were just dropping off there. So I've kind of developed a little bit more, you know what, this is where we're at, and this is what you would get for that, and video explainers for each step of the process and everything. And I definitely received a much better response from those clients in qualifying them, and my qualified clients became a lot greater than they were before. Have you guys kind of worked on anything to help you get, leads coming in to, you're not leaving people behind sort of thing. You're not missing out on qualified clients. They're not slipping through your sales process. Is there anything in that sort of stage that you're able to obtain more clients in your sales process?
Yeah, we're gonna use up the last 13 minutes here because I love this topic. I'm gonna give a story first. So where Earthscape is looking for potentially acquiring other landscape or maintenance or even tree service companies in our area. So I'm having lots of conversations with other companies in our area. And I chatted with another company. They've been in business 4 years. The young gentleman, they were looking at their hourly rate is $50, whereas ours is 200, and he's getting at his hourly rate, he's getting pushback on price. So my point there is that it doesn't matter what your rate is, like you're still going to be expensive to certain clients. So or to prospects. So we all want to make sure we're talking to the right clients. And so for Earthscape, the right clients are, they have to have a budget of $30,000 or more. We historically do not convert the smaller jobs. I wish we could. Because small jobs can be highly profitable, but historically we don't get those jobs. I think it's because, hey, we are expensive, right? We are on the higher end of it. And so that's for us, like making sure you're talking to the right clients and disqualifying quickly if they're not the right fit, because some people are happy to talk about landscaping and get some free advice and they'll never hire you. So we disqualify those. That keeps our design team focused on working with the right potential prospects. Our first meeting with them, we'll want to set up a virtual video call meeting with the prospect, unless it's like an A-level lead that came from a builder or something, or they've got a budget of, $250,000 or plus. We'll generally meet them right away if it feels good. But we'll have a video call with them. We'll discuss them, what their pain points are, what they're looking for, what their priorities are, and we'll actually have, ideally on another monitor, we'll have a square foot calculator. So we don't use square foot pricing for quoting, but we do use it for giving rough. We call it a price guide, but we use it for putting together rough numbers. If the client wants a patio that's 20 by 20, that's 400 square feet. We know on average a paver patio is $50 a square foot. We'll run that through, and we'll do that. Every project's going to have sod repair or seed repair if it's a tighter budget. And do they want landscape lighting? Going through their wish list and having a number at the bottom. Okay, so clients, we've gone through this right now based on the patio, the water feature, the gardens. You wanted some trees. We're at $45,000 to $50,000. Is that a number you're comfortable with? No, I'm not comfortable with that at all. I was thinking like 20,000. Okay, so we can start removing some scope here. So we can remove the trees, remove the gardens, but the reality is all you're getting is a patio, and we're repairing our construction access path. Is that a number you're comfortable with? A number you're comfortable with? Yes or no? No, no, you're not. You want all of this? Okay, we're probably not the right fit. See you later. Or they are okay with it. I mean, there's no discounts going on here. There's no great shortcuts. We want to value engineer projects as much as we can, but for us, that's a really critical step in the process, is getting the budget or clients, we like to call it clients investment, their investment number, and identifying what that is, because they might tell you a number, but I've found historically it's off. It's half of what it actually is in reality. But they don't know what their budget is, and we want to find out what that is. And this is the process before they get into the system, and the system is the paid landscape design. We do not want our designers designing things that won't get built. So this is like the price guide is the gatekeeper, and it's a lot of talk about numbers. I mean, our designers sometimes feel like they're spending as much time talking about numbers as they are design, but that's for us, that's the biggest pre-qualifier. And that's why we this year we're at about a 83% conversion rate from design to construction. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. Um, could it get better? Yes, but it's at least keeping our designers and good design takes time, but it's keeping them focused on working with the right projects.
At what point did you decide that $35,000 was that cutoff there? And what was the determination of that? Was it just you weren't landing those small jobs, so and you figured that it was the 35,000 that that's kind of the threshold where you were landing them, and that's where you were going to take the business basically?
Yeah, I mean, as we've grown, that numbers has increased. I mean, 5, 7 years ago, would be happy to take on a $15,000 job, but we didn't get many of them. And as we've grown, our prices have gone up. We have a very good idea of knowing what we need to charge in order to be a profitable company, and so that number has increased. And really we would do these leads, and we have a CRM, like a client relationship management software, and so we can filter and get all sorts of data from that. And we weren't converting those jobs. So I'd say about 3 years ago, we were doing 15,000. If they didn't have a $15,000 budget, we were cutting them off. Now it's up to 30,000. If we see a real pullback and our backlog starts to shrink, we're going to run smaller leads again. But we convert like 2% of them. It's almost better not even doing them. It's almost better going sitting at home in a recession than having to run those leads because we just don't convert them. And we do not want to drop our prices because we don't want to work for free.
I don't want to hold up much more of your time here, so I do have three more questions for you. Take as long or as little as you want with them based on how much time you have to give me here.
I'm good. Yep.
Um, Maintenance. You pulled back on maintenance, you said during your talk. And you said that you wish you hadn't. And now you're kind of almost doubling maintenance year over year here. What's what's the decision upon bringing on more maintenance and really focusing on doubling maintenance year over year here?
We're primarily design build. Design build is great when the economy is great. Um, so, but unfortunately, if the economy isn't great, then those projects will slow down, especially if you're just doing design build, residential design build like us. So it was a strategy to diversify and make us a little more, well, I'd say recession proof. So maintenance, if you can do a good job at it, you're going to keep getting the work. It's recurring revenue. So we'd like to get that up to 30% of our total revenue. Right now it'll be between 9 and 10% on this year. But so it's just it's a good, I think, strategy just to make a bit more of a rock solid company through the highs and the lows of the economy is just yeah, get into maintenance to diversify a bit. The other thing too is that it does increase the value of our business, and maintenance companies generally are worth a lot more because it's recurring revenue. And so although we have no plans of selling, we are employee owned. It is good to have a company that looks good on paper. So those are a couple things. The other thing is like we actually want to service, we want to maintain these beautiful landscapes that we install. We don't want to give it
Right.
to someone else. We think we're the best company to do it. And although that's a bit of an aspirational statement, we know we can still get better. We want to be the ones that maintain it, and our want us to maintain it too. So it's like we're throwing if we're not doing that, we're throwing money out the door and letting someone else take care of our of our landscape projects.
Gotcha. Snow removal you do not do. So what do you guys do in the winter with your employees?
Yeah. So we don't do snow removal now. Uh, Ask me in 5 years, and this it may be a different answer. But yeah, we have so our project managers, designers, they're busy all year, so that's not an issue. The field staff, um, we'll move like 2 to 3 of them in on equipment maintenance, so we'll do as much as we can in-house. We're not doing engine rebuilds or replacing brakes or anything like that, but we want to do all of that through the winter, and it is quite a big project. We've got a shop here, we can do that. So that's one of our silver bullets. We try to do all of our training and things like that through the winter. So, and even business improvements. So I like to keep a spreadsheet that's called winter to-do list, and it's broken down by division. It's probably, I don't know, it's probably 125 um, rows big right now, but there's always improvements to make on the business. And and so we'll work on that, whether we're using crew leaders to do that or lead hands, depending on it. But there's always most of the business improvements we'll do in the winter. And yeah, the list seems to keep, even though we stroke stuff off from one winter, we have the next winter, there's a bunch more that gets added. So constant improvement, winter's the time to do that. And then we do have a bit of a silver bullet. We have our sister company, Earthscape Play, and that's spun off of Earthscape about 10 years ago. They do like custom playground fabrication. A lot of it's carpentry work. We can move some of our team members over to that company as well. But it really that one's you can't really rely on. Depends on how busy they are. But sometimes we can move 2 to 6 staff over there. But they also need to know how to do carpentry too. So. Those are a few strategies we have. Yeah, keeping people busy in the winter without snow. I know that question almost gets asked as often as how do we generate more leads? And we never have that one completely solved, but we've got a couple tricks.
And then you guys are an ESOP. Does that help with attracting employees? Does it help with retaining employees? Both, neither? What was that?
Yeah, so we're very early on in the process. As I said, even though we've been doing it for coming on 4 years here, I would say we're still a very young ESOP company. And what I would say to that is my biggest reason for it is it's the right thing to do. So being an owner, owning a company can be very lucrative. I don't think there's any secret about that. And for me, I don't, as the owner, I don't need to own 100%. Even if I own 50 or 40 or 30% or less as we continue to grow, I'm good with that. And I'm still making more money than I would know what to do with. And for me, it's the right thing to do because I want people who are sticking around at Earthscape to make good money as well. I want them to, if they're going to stick around and they're helping the company be profitable, then they should be treated like an owner. I feel I'm very passionate about that. Um, and so if I can't justify it from from a recruiting perspective or anything like that, I still think it's the right thing to do. If people are going to stick around, they deserve to be treated like an owner, and that generating if we're having good years, that can be very financially positive to them. Um, does it help for recruiting? I think for people who are, you know, people who've been in the industry for a while, for more like seasoned veterans, I think it can help. Senior positions, people who see that it is a long, ownership is a long play. Um, and so I think it can help for recruiting key people. But for people who are junior staff, lead hands, even crew leaders who, are just are living paycheck to paycheck, I think that's hard for them to see the benefit of that. They'd be more interested in the profit sharing, right? What's my profit sharing going to get? I can get the reward for that this year. Ownership is you're not going to see the benefit of that for possibly 5+ years to pay down your loan and things like that. So. That's the recruiting. Yes, I think it can help with key positions, but no, it's not going to all of a sudden get a flood of entrants. People who say, "Oh, I just want to work for Earthscape and be an owner," when they're really just, dealing with the problems of today.
And really, two quick questions. What's one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning? I know it's a quick question on my part. It requires some thinking on your part, but Sam, what's one thing you know now that you wish you knew from the very beginning?
You know, we didn't have our first 10 years of business. We didn't have dividends. It was always reinvesting in the business. And, almost 20 years ago, I was 19 years old, 20 years old, and it being so short-sighted, right? And even 10 years ago, my late 20s version, I was very short-sighted and wondering how can I get more money now? But I wish I would have had. I'm glad I had a business partner that was older, more mature, and was into like reinvesting in the business and things like that. But I'm my younger version. I wish I would have had a bit more patience and being okay with where we're going. Growing a company takes time. Nothing good happens fast, I don't think. And so, I wish I had a bit more patience then, but where we ended up now is good. And now I think I'm a bit more mature in that regard. But um, yeah, having patience, but also like it's I think a successful business is thousands of little decisions that help you get there. There's not one big, you'll hit the auto home run, but really it's just doing a lot of little things, moving slowly in the right directions, having patience.
And we talked about struggles in 2023. What is Earthscape struggling with right now?
Yeah, I think it's training. So having the crews that um can install these quarter million, half million, $1 million landscapes, and not even the crews, the project managers, the support staff, and yeah, that's another thing where the answer to that is the answer I gave to the first question, which is have patience and put the plan in place. We're not going to hire a bunch of rock stars that can make us the best in the industry, but we can develop our people and train, but that takes time, and being patient with everyone. And yeah, that's I think where we're at for this year.
Sam, thank you so much for your time. I've already gone over it. I do really appreciate it. Thank you for bearing with me. For those listening, we're on our way home from H&A. So this internet is a little bit spotty here, and Sam has been extremely patient with us here. Sam, you've been extremely transparent as well through the Knowledge Tree Consulting event that I heard you at, and definitely wanted you to come on the show, and unbelievably transparent with us here on the How to Hardscape podcast. So I do really appreciate that. I know our audience is going to really appreciate that. Where can our audience find out more about you, Sam, and Earthscape, and wherever you want to send them to here?
Yeah, so earthscape.ca. We are on Instagram. You can see us there. You can you can get our contact info from the website, and our office. If you just go into the info at earthscape.ca and you want to talk to me, you can just send an email through there, and our office administrator would forward that along to myself. So I'm definitely happy to chat with people, talk about landscaping, and yeah, it's a tough industry, right? It's a grind, but it's the best. I can't imagine doing anything else. I love it. I love being outside. I love the people in the industry, and yeah, happy to chat with your listeners if they want to talk.
Awesome. Sam, thanks so much.
All right, safe travels.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Sam on his socials there. That's Earthscape _ on Instagram if you're already there and checking them out. And we'll definitely have Sam on in a future episode. So if anything stuck out to you there, especially things that we didn't get to touch on in our time, then just send me a message at How to Hardscape, and we will make sure to get those questions answered the next time Sam comes on the show. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the podcast with anybody that you think would find it helpful, whether on Instagram or however you'd want to share it. We very much appreciate that. Ratings, reviews on Apple and Spotify also go a long way. So thank you for that. And we want to say thank you to our sponsors. Cycle CPA. If you're looking for bookkeeping, accounting, CFO services, reach out to Cycle CPA at cyclecpa.com. Let them know How to Hardscape sent you for money off their services there. And Knowledge Tree Consulting. If you're looking for efficiency consultants who have a lot of experience in our industry, check out Knowledge Tree Consulting at knowledgetreeconsulting.com. And once again, the How to Hardscape headquarters software will help you budget, estimate job costs, time track, schedule, train employees, as well as yourself if you're looking to get into hardscaping, along with our community and a book club coming up in 2025. So that interests you, send me a message at How to Hardscape on Instagram or contact at How to Hardscape, or simply just go to members.howtohardscape.com to learn more. And we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.